So Bitcoin is just a whisker away from hitting $100,000, a price point many believe was impossible just a couple of years ago, but here we are. So in this video, we're going to be going over some potential scenarios, whether we blast past it or whether we have a big sell-off and a pullback, some potential areas where you could buy the dip, and also what that's going to mean for altcoins based on previous cycles. So let's get into it. So starting off with a little word of warning, of course, everyone is super bullish at the moment and we are just a whisker from 100K. It may have already hit it by the time you're watching this video, but we do have to be aware that there is a lot of euphoria in the air. And as I say, big psychological number at 100K. We may well see a lot of sell orders, a lot of resistance. And let's not forget the potential signs that we've got here of a potential local top. So I'm here on the CoinMarketCap website, really good resource for all sorts of things, but at the moment I'm just focusing on the fear and greed index, which as you can see is currently at 88 extreme greed. Now if you've not seen this before, very useful tool for using as confluence with other factors to sort of determine when to be more risk on, more risk off when a potential local top or potential local bottom is forming. Now, if we look at previous data, we can see the yearly high and low of the fear and greed index. So the yearly low was down at 26, which was obviously fear, and that was September the 7th, which was obviously a local bottom. In fact, we can probably find it on here. So that's August. There we go, 7th September. So the BTC price back then was, what's that? Oh, that must have been the drop down to 49K. And then extreme greed 92 was the yearly high back in March, when of course, remember, we had that mini alt season. So bearing in mind that we topped out at 92, we're currently at 88. We could be very close to a potential local top and a potential pullback. So let's go take a look at the charts and see where we may pull back to if we do, or if we blast past 100K, where we might end up. So we're on the BTC weekly chart, and there are a couple of Fibonacci retracements on there, and all will become clear in just a second. But what I want to draw your attention to is the current cycle. So I've got a Fibonacci tool drawn from the bear market lows of 15K up to the 2021 highs of 69K. And so another reason for a potential local top in around 100K added confluence is that we've got the 1.618 at around $102,000. So as I said before, 100K, round psychological number, fear and greed pretty high, and we've also got that 1.618 Fibonacci retracement area as well. Now, if we were to put in a local top at around 102K, where would we end up pulling back to? So if we use previous cycles as a bit of a measure, so if we go all the way back to the break of the 2013 all-time high, back in 2017, so of 1,168, you can see if you draw a fib from the all-time high level up to where we had our first big pullback, which was around $3,000, you can see we pulled back right into the 618 retracement. If we then use the same rule for the 2017 all-time high break, so 20K, once we broke 20K in 2020, our first big pullback came at around 40K, as you can see. And again, we pulled back just shy of that 618, literally about a few $100s short of the 618. So what does that mean if the cycles or if history were to repeat itself? Well, if we grab our fib and go from the previous all-time high of 69K, take it up to that level of around $102,000, that 618 pullback would bring us back into around that 80K area. And in terms of a percentage pullback, that would obviously be about 20%. Now, as we all know, Bitcoin likes to have 20 to 30% pullbacks in a bull market. So that would fit that narrative as well. Not only that, if we then take a look, if we get rid of that, actually we'll keep the fib, we'll put on our fair value gap tool on. And as you can see, there is a weekly fair value gap in around that area of 80K as well. Not only is there a weekly fair value gap, but if we go down to the daily time frame, you can see, if we zoom out a little bit, around that 80K area, there is two daily fair value gaps as well. So one around at bottom at around 81.7, and the top of one lines up with that weekly fair value gap, as you can see, at around 80K. So as I say, if we were to see a local top in around here or 100K, 100k to about 102k. A likely pullback area would be in around that 80, 81k, which would be a huge shakeout. And you can imagine the amount of panic on the timeline should that happen. A lot of people would be calling for a retest of the previous all-time highs of about 73k. People would be talking about a deviation, end of the cycle, etc. So just something to be cautious about. As I say, we are hitting a lot of confluence in terms of potential local top signals. But of course, nothing's guaranteed. We may well end up blasting past through 100k. And if that were to happen, where are some potential next targets? So we've talked about this Fibonacci retracement, pointing out the 1.618 at 102. The next area for me is the 2.618, which would be around $156,000. And then the next target after that, the 3.618, which would take us to around $207,000. So obviously huge targets, but if you look at it in percentage wise, of course, from 100 up to 150k, you're only talking a 50% gain, and from 100 to 200k is only a 100% gain, which when you bear in mind, we've already come up several X's. I think we're 5x from the bottom, from the bear market lows. Currently, yeah, about 5.5x up from the bear market lows. What's another 100%? So could quite easily see those targets. Now for me, I'd definitely be looking at taking some profits if we get up to around that 150k area. There's definitely no guarantee that we get to 200, but if we did, again, we'd definitely be taking a lot of profits there. Of course, if we do get up to these dizzy heights, you're going to be getting the same things that we got back at 69k, which was super cycle. Bitcoin's never going to drop below 100k again, etc., etc. So just be mindful, as I've talked about, that fear and greed showing that things are a little bit frothy. There's a lot of euphoria in there, obviously a lot of retail coming back into the market as well. So some potential local top signals to just be aware of. So if you are in a lot of profit, especially if you're in leverage trades and all that sort of stuff, take some profit. You don't go broke taking profit. And then of course, if we do blast past, at least you've still got some left on the table. Now let's talk about altcoins, because as I've spoke about in the last few weeks, it's not alt season yet. We need to wait for the confirmation. So again, if we go to Bitcoin dominance, if you've seen this before, I've talked about it last few weeks. What we've seen before is that Bitcoin dominance tops just after all-time high breaks. So if we look back at the all-time high break of April 2017, that's when we had a massive alt season. Bitcoin dominance topped and fell all the way down from up at 90% down to 40%. Same thing happened back in December 2020 and January 2021. We broke all-time highs in December 2020. Bitcoin dominance had one final spike in January of 2021, and then we had that huge alt season all the way through until May. Now, of course, we've broken all-time highs in the last couple of weeks. So are we going to see one more spike on Bitcoin dominance, maybe hit around 63, 64% on dominance, and then we start to roll over? Maybe that last spike in Bitcoin dominance, I thought maybe it would happen when we broke all-time highs. Maybe it happens when we break 100k. Maybe we go from 100k straight up to say 110, 120k, and that's when everyone flees altcoins, decides they want to be in Bitcoin. Bitcoin has that one final charge, and then that's when it all turns around. Bitcoin dominance collapses. We get the bounce on altcoins, particularly on ETH BTC, which is of course another metric for alt season. When ETH BTC is doing well, that means that altcoins generally are doing well. And as you can see, Ethereum has been bleeding against BTC all the way back since September 2022, as have most altcoins, not all, but most. And I talked about this before. Ethereum BTC had a bearish retest of the monthly level of 0.04. We may well see it bottom out down here about 0.027, especially if, as I say, we do get that BTC solo charge over 100k up to, say 110, 120 before we see it either go sideways or start to pull back. The other chart you want to keep an eye on as well is the total 3 BTC, which I talked about before. This huge level here about 0.47. We saw we broke it in October. We've had a bearish retest of it so far this month. When you see a monthly candle close back above this level around 47, 48, that's when it's time to get bullish on altcoins. The total 3 BTC chart, keep an eye on that, because as I say, when this starts trending up, that's when altcoins are doing better than Bitcoin. If we go and take a look at some individual examples, these are altcoins that I talked about, or charts I've talked about over the past few weeks. I talked about AVAX. You want to wait for a weekly candle close above 4,165 sats, above this weekly level, which has been huge support and resistance in the past, and the weekly moving average 21. As you can see, rejection last week. We've rallied a little bit so far this week, but again, I would be waiting for that confirmation of a candle close above that weekly level and moving average 21. Near BTC, again, talked about needing a weekly candle close above 6,600 sats and the weekly moving average 21. Rejected it last week. We've rejected this weekly level this week. We may end up getting another chance of buying 5,250 sats. If that's probably a really good entry, as you can see, big level of previous support and resistance, and then you just cut your losses if we get a weekly close below 5,000 sats. Injective, again, on another huge level. Talked about it. Wanting to break 3,200 sats or 3,300 sats, get a weekly candle close above the weekly moving average 21, which we'd rejected over the past few weeks. Again, we rejected it. We've come back down into this huge monthly level of support, which again, probably not a bad little buy now. If you want to have a little nibble at things like near and injective, maybe go, put a little bit of allocation in, but just be cautious that, as I say, we may well see another spike on dominance, another drop in ETH BTC, and these levels may well be lost. And if we do, I mean, it's a long way down for injective. You may see it come down to this level here, about 1,600 sats. If we just grab our tool there, that's probably the next area of support for me. And in terms of a percentage loss, you could be looking at another 30% drop. So it seems extreme, but of course it's already come down a long way. And if we do see Bitcoin dominance go up another 3-4%, you could easily see injective as a solo alt lose a lot of market share against BTC. The outlier, or one of the outliers, as I say, is ADA BTC. This is doing really well. I talked about this about 3 weeks ago. Talked about the fact that we were hitting this monthly range low of 474 sats. I talked about the fact that we had got a weekly candle close above this weekly level of a significant weekly level of previous support and resistance. As you can see, we came back down, retested the moving average 21, and we've had a really nice bounce since, as you can see. So this is the risk you take of getting into things like now. What you could see is something like injective and near do similar things, bouncing off these big weekly levels. However, that's why I say you might want to just put like a little starter position on, not go too heavy, because if they fail, they've got a long way to drop. However, if they do bounce, then you could do quite well. 50% gain on your BTC from ADA on this bounce. So definitely something to monitor. But as I say, in terms of a broad alt season where everything starts moving together, if you want to be safe, wait for Bitcoin dominance to start looking like it's rolling over, ETH BTC to look like it's found a bottom and starting to bounce, and total 3 BTC to get over that 48-49 mark. So hope you found the video useful. Where do you think BTC is going next? Do you think we have a correction here or 100k, or do you think we pump all the way up to about 110, 120? And what altcoins are you looking to stack up on for the hopeful upcoming alt season? Let us know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.